Welcome to our NCAA coverage of Go Big or Go Home. I am Old Man Troy, joined by the youngster Kevin Cunningham, a.k.a. Kid Cunny on Twitter. Kevin, what a good first day. I love NCAA basketball, and it did not disappoint today. You and I were, texting back and forth throughout the action throughout the day, and a lot of good games so far.
Yeah, a lot of good games. Villanova won by 20, Gonzaga won by 20, but Villanova was up by 1 at half. Gonzaga didn't have their first lead until there was 3 minutes left in the first half. Just looking through the scores, there really wasn't a lot of blowouts. St. Mary's was up by a lot early on, but then VCU closed it. Middle Tennessee State, we'll obviously talk about them in Minnesota more in depth. But yeah, all these games were primarily close. Butler was kind of up by double digits throughout, but a bunch of good games today. No real blowouts throughout. There was nothing terrible to watch.
Well, yeah, and even that Villanova game, because you were saying at halftime, Mount St. Mary's, and I said, go Mount St. Mary's. I didn't really care about the bracket, and I'll be totally honest about that with people. Yeah, I got a bracket, but to be honest, at the end of the day, what is it going to give me if I do well in my bracket? A pat on the back? When I see a game like that, I'm cheering for Mount St. Mary's. I don't care how far I got Villanova going. Heck, I was cheering for North Dakota State for a little bit, and we got Arizona in the Final Four. I was not cheering for Vermont, though, Kevin. I was not cheering for Vermont to win. That was my Purdue team. I thought they were going down the way Vermont was shooting the three. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But I was saying I just got done with a ramble a little earlier tonight, and Evan was talking about the bracket with me, and I think that what we're seeing now is a lot of chalk today. Only 2 lower seeds won, but the games were competitive. And to be honest, if I'm the NCAA, I'm okay with this. I'm okay with not a lot of upsets if there's good competitive games. Yeah, people like to see the lower seeds win, but I think you and I have pretty much exhausted it about the level of play this year in NCAA, that it's maybe down a little bit, maybe a little bit mediocre, a lot of good teams, but not a lot of great teams. And so you're seeing a lot of competitiveness in the tournament, and I like it. I thought there was a lot of great games today in Vermont. I'll tell you that was a game, and I had told you that when we did our preview, yeah, I'm picking Purdue. Well, I didn't say it when I first made the pick, but I picked Purdue based on matchups after that first round, but Purdue very well could have won down in that first game. And Vermont came on and played really well. But we'll just go ahead, Kevin. We'll start, the Villanova game, not a whole lot to talk about. Villanova pretty much just flexed their muscles as the game went on. This is probably one of those where they probably got caught maybe being a little complacent, being, hey, we're a number 1 seed, we'll show up, we'll play. And Mount St. Mary's had a chip on their shoulder and said, hey, we're going to show you. And they did for 20 minutes. But you and I both knew they were probably going to come back, win by double digits, which they did. Not a lot to really go on that. And then right below that's the game we just finished watching, and that's when we're going to do the show. The Wisconsin Badgers, Virginia Tech. It was a 10-point victory, so if you just look at a score when you wake up in the morning, you'd be like, 10 points, pretty easy win. It was not an easy win for Wisconsin, Kevin. I'm a Wisconsin guy. I follow Wisconsin basketball. Luckily, Canning ate his Wheaties today, and he was shooting the lights out of the ball. Hap got an early foul trouble, took him out of their offense, and then I don't know why, Kevin. At the end of the game, we both tweeted basically at the same time. You go inside, drop it deep, and, man, look how easy this game can be. I think when Hap went out early in the first half with about 10 minutes to go, they then relied on the three-pointer, and they didn't get away from it. They didn't go back to Hap, and I think that was a mistake. I think if they would have went inside more in this game, it would have been a 10-point victory, and it probably would have been a lot easier. But they were relying on that three-point shot, and I don't think that's something they can do if they want to beat Villanova.
No. I'll say this about Virginia Tech, I guess, before talking about Villanova. You look at the offensive glass, and it was 17-4 in favor of Wisconsin with like a minute left, or it was less than that, and we texted each other at the same time, like, wow, 17 offensive boards. Virginia Tech, I know, got one more, but Wisconsin owned the glass, not just offensively, but in total, they had 37 rebounds as a team. Virginia Tech had 25. I said coming into this matchup that, Virginia Tech likes to get up and down. They like to shoot the three. They shot 41% from deep. It's not as though they didn't shoot well from deep, but Wisconsin also shot 41% from three. Koenig had 8 of those. So Koenig went 8 of 16 or 17 from three, had 28 points. It was one of those Koenig games where he just clutched it out. He's done that over the years, and this was one of those games. But Hayes inside, 16 and 10. Happ, even with his foul trouble, 10 and 8. So I think that Wisconsin's recipe of success for this game was playing inside out. When they did jack up threes, they made 41% of them. Koenig, surely helped. Showalter is always good from deep. He was 2 of 2. So as long as Wisconsin gets open looks thanks to feeding the ball inside, which to me is something you can do against Villanova, that's every single one of these teams this year has an issue with them. And for Villanova, they lost their big guy who was an inside presence, not great offensively, but really strong defensively. He was their shot blocker. Ochefu, he's in the NBA now. That's a void for Villanova. If there is a problem with Villanova, it's their interior. Their leading rebounder 6'9", and then the next tallest guy on their team is 6'7" that plays. So Wisconsin's got the advantage down low. They should be able to out-rebound Villanova. I don't think it's going to be by 12 like it was today against Virginia Tech, but Wisconsin should have the advantage inside. And again, if Wisconsin's defense comes to play, holds Villanova to the low 70s, and Wisconsin's hitting some open look threes, I absolutely think this upset's possible. I talked about it during our preview shows, and I said I really think this is going to be a game because Wisconsin's going to have the advantage inside. And as long as you're feeding Happ and Hayes on the inside, and the refs, especially in this Virginia Tech matchup, they were calling every little touch foul on the inside, both ways. So if Wisconsin can feed the post and collapse Villanova's defense to double down, that leaves open shooters, which Wisconsin can capitalize on, and it can be a really interesting game on Saturday.
Yeah, they're going to, Happ's going to have to stay out of foul trouble. Happ's going to need to play his regular rotation minutes, but I really think that they can do some damage inside. And, you look at the number of three-pointers they put up, Kevin, and the old adage is you live and die by the three-pointer. And tonight they were falling, but we were talking about some earlier games. I can't remember which game it was, but I said, it was a Maryland game where they keep jacking up threes, and pretty soon that lead will disappear. And that can happen because, you can be hot for a while, and it can get you right back into a game, and it can give you a big lead. But at some point, if you go cold and you miss 2 or 3 three-pointers, the other team comes down, there's that many run against you, and boom, your lead has disappeared. And that happened to Wisconsin tonight. And then at the end, they actually used their size and strength to get some offensive rebounds, some easy buckets inside that missed three-pointer at the end, where Bronson Koenig put up a three and Happ was right there under the basket to put it back. I mean, that's great. But, Wisconsin has their work cut out, but this is a game, and we've talked about it. We both picked Villanova to win the game. However, I would not be surprised if Wisconsin comes to play. Now, we've talked about it all year. This is a team that is built to make a run in the NCAA tournament, and they could take down Villanova in the second round. It would not surprise me. So we could see an upset, and, that would be a bracket buster for a lot of people. For you and I, it really wouldn't be a bracket buster for us as we move forward, but, for a lot of people it would. Moving straight down, though, in the East, Kevin, that Virginia-UNC-Wilmington game, wow, Wilmington gave Virginia a pretty big scare in this one. Virginia pulled it out at the end. Virginia, to me, Kevin, the surprise here, 76 points. I know it was against Wilmington, but, man, I didn't think Virginia had 76 points in them.
That's the one knock you can, knock Virginia on. Like I said, previewing this game, this was a popular 12-5 upset pick because UNCW, like I've said, you've got a mid-major as a 12 seed, that spells trouble because that's not a team that just obliterated their league because they're better and they're going to go up against a major conference team and just, be in awe That's what some 15 seeds and 16 seeds do, some 14s as well. But usually those 12 and 13s from the mid-majors that are really good and have transferred from these D1 schools for numerous reasons, these teams can play. That's why 12 over 5 and even 13 over 4 the last 5 years, I think 4 out of the last 5 years, a 13 has beaten a 4. So that's even becoming common now as well. So UNCW, very good team, but Virginia just had enough. Shayok is one of those players for Virginia that I always believed in, and he had a career-high 23. So that really helped Virginia's offensive woes because, again, Virginia, top 5 defense every single year. You can book it with Bennett as the coach, but offensively this year they just have not been the same as they were the last few years where you could say, okay, I could see this Virginia team making a Final Four run. This year you can't. Not because of matchups, but just they don't have enough offense on a nightly basis to get through top-end teams. Even against UNCW, you're scoring 76, which is a good number, but it's not a ton of points. And that included a career high from Shayok. London Prentice had 24. Prentice is an all-star guard. But, hats off to Virginia getting a win against a good 12 seed. There aren't many bad 12 seeds. This year it seems like every 12 seed is pretty talented. And yet I went all with 5 seeds this year, and it almost worked out, but we'll talk about that later. But yeah, I was surprised that Virginia, I guess, got 24 from Prentice, 23 from Shayok. So that's what kept them afloat, barely. They won by 5 points.
Yeah, they had to, defensively, them too, also giving up, a number of points. It's not something you see from Virginia, but they did enough to get by and survive in the tournament, and that's all it takes. You take it one game at a time. They're going to move on and play Florida, who, to be honest, again, it's one of those games. It was 80-65 the final. If you just look at the score, you'll be like, oh, man, that was an easy game. East Tennessee State, they came to play. I don't think Florida was ever in real danger in this game, but Florida's a team we talked about that have some talent on that roster, and talent alone is why I picked them over this one. I was never going to pick this upset, the 13 over the 4, but Florida moved on, rather easily, I guess, if you're going to look at a game that maybe wasn't one of those great competitive games. This was probably that game. Not much to talk about, but it's going to be a good matchup now, Florida against Virginia, Kevin. In round 2. That's going to be one of those games that I'll love to catch a few minutes of that one because I think that's going to be a good game when you got a 4-5 matchup there in the second round.
Yeah. The reason I took Florida over East Tennessee State, and this was another semi-popular one, again, 13s are beating 4s almost every year now. So it's not crazy to see it happen at all. But it was a semi-common pick because Florida lost their big man, but East Tennessee State turned the ball over at a crazy high rate, and that's what Florida likes to do is turn people over and press you and make you uncomfortable. And I only watched this game for a few minutes, but that's what I saw was Florida getting after it, making East Tennessee State uncomfortable. And they just force too many turnovers, Florida does. Florida's not going to be able to do that against Virginia. Virginia's a much slower, cooler, Parentis as your point guard, he's not going to be sped up ever against any team. So Florida's going to have to actually score some points, and against Virginia, that's going to be tough. So that's why I had Virginia moving on against Florida in the second round. But like you said, it should be a good game. I think both teams wanted more from this season. I think Virginia was looking for a little more offense throughout the year, and Florida obviously losing their top big guy, that just hurts them overall. So 2 teams that probably won't get past Nova if Nova moves on past Wisconsin. But if Wisconsin beats Villanova, I would probably favor Wisconsin anyway. I feel that strongly about both Nova and Wisconsin, and I don't feel that strongly about Virginia and Florida.
Yeah, well, like I said, I think Wisconsin kind of got hosed in their seeding with their second round game. Yep. But I had mentioned to you in a text earlier, should Nova go down today when they were losing 30-29, would certainly open the door for them to get to the Elite 8. But that doesn't mean if they don't beat Virginia. If they beat Villanova, I'm with you. I think they make it up to play Duke. I would just replace Villanova with Wisconsin at that point. And Wisconsin does have the opportunity. We talked about that. I'm not going to exhaust it anymore. I'm going to move us right on down to the West, where every game was played today. Only part of the region, our bracket, that played every game today. You talked a little bit about Gonzaga, South Dakota State. South Dakota State, you look again at the score and be like, oh yeah, 20-point victory. Gonzaga had to play. And, I think sometimes, Kevin, these one seeds, they look at their competition, and no coach will say, well, we took them lightly. But you can tell. I mean, these teams go out there and play, and on paper, it should be a 20-point victory. But when these guys get on the floor and play, they have pride. They're not going to let you just run all over them. They're going to play their hearts out. And hats off to South Dakota State. They stayed in this game. And then Gonzaga just flexed their muscles, sort of like what Villanova did. And they finally took care of business. But my hat's off to South Dakota State. It's a tough, when you're 16 versus 1, that's a tough one. Never happened. It's going to happen at some point. Just didn't happen for South Dakota State today.
Yeah, I'll say this much. The South Dakota State, to me, did not look like a 16 seed. They had the country's second leading scorer in Mike Daum. I talked about him when previewing this game. And I said if a 16 is going to be at a 1, it's going to be this game. Gonzaga was favored by 18 points. They won by 20. I tweeted out right before the game started that just watch this matchup because it could be really close late. But, if I had to pick it, I would say Gonzaga wins by 22 because these one seeds, as you mentioned perfectly, they just at one point flex their muscles and they go on that 18-2 run or 20-4 run, and it's just over because they just have such a talent disparity between, a 1 and a 16 seed. It's obvious. Against, 3 and 14s, you can tell there's a difference, but it just takes a little hot night from a 14 seed, and boom, there you go. 1 versus 16, it's a little different. The 16 seed has to play out of their mind. The 1 seed has to be playing poorly, and Gonzaga was shooting it poorly. They didn't have their first lead until there were 3 minutes left in the first half. So South Dakota State was controlling the game for 17 minutes. Then Gonzaga kind of, got their first lead. They had a small lead at the end of the first half, and then flexed their muscles just like Villanova did. That's what you have to avoid if you're these, 15, 16 seeds, is letting those 1 or 2 seeds go on those big runs and, just making it unmanageable to come back realistically when you're that out-talented. But hats off to Gonzaga's defense as well for keeping this team to 46 points. When you hold the country's second leading scorer to however many points it was like 13, cutting his average in half. That's what makes Gonzaga dangerous going forward. That's why Gonzaga can win the title, in my opinion. But I think they're the most vulnerable 1 seed, but they can win the title because they are a complete team. All they had to do was flex their muscles, and they win by 20.
Yeah, now they're going to play against the Northwestern team, Kevin, and this, to me, was maybe the most intriguing game of the day. Northwestern, Vanderbilt, we both picked Northwestern. They're going to play Gonzaga the first time in the NCAA Tournament. They get a win, and to be honest, they should celebrate now because when Saturday rolls around, their tournament time is probably over. And it very well could have been over today, but I'll tell you what, Vanderbilt, you and I both questioned, the selection committee and putting Vanderbilt in at a 9. Vanderbilt did everything in their power to win this game, and then at the end there was kind of a crazy situation that went on, and Fisher Davis, after Vanderbilt took the lead, he fouled. He had a foul, and everybody's talking about, oh man, he lost the game for Vanderbilt. If you win the foul, blah, blah, blah. I mentioned to you in a tweet, Kevin, I was a coach once, and sometimes people make mistakes. I don't think that was the reason they lost that game. My text to you was I'll paraphrase it, but there was 39 other minutes in this game. What about the mistakes that happened in those 39 minutes that cost them points? Maybe they wouldn't have been in that situation had they not made those mistakes earlier in the game. I know that you want to highlight it because it's the end of the game. It's a big mistake, put them on the line. But you know what? The way Northwestern was actually scoring at the end of this game, Kevin, who's not to say that they didn't set up their offense and score? Because Northwestern was scoring, and that game was a seesaw battle at the end, and the kid made a mistake. I'm not going to get on him. You know, I know that some people are. It sucks to be him. He probably feels really bad, and I can't imagine the outcry and the criticism he's going to take. But to be honest, if you're a fan listening in and you're one that wants to criticize him, lay off of him. Because as a former coach, things happen at the end of the game, and I never blame the mistake at the end of the game. Every time that happened, Kevin, as a coach, I would go in the locker room, and if I heard anything about that last play at the end of the game that cost us a game, I always would say what I just said. What about this that happened at the end of the first half? What about this that happened 2 minutes into the game? What about this? Had the outcome been different earlier in the game, we wouldn't have been in that situation to even have that have to happen. So lay off of it, get off of it, think about all the other mistakes that were made prior to that happening. You know, and that really, to me, as a former coach, didn't mean to go on a rant there, but it really irks me when people are just going to concentrate on that one thing that happened at an end of a game. And yes, it did cost them the game in a sense. But what if they would have made another three-pointer? What if they would have got another offensive rebound? What if they wouldn't have committed another foul earlier in the game? They wouldn't have been in that situation. So as a coach, it irks me when everybody just jumps on the guy at the end of the game who makes a mistake. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, who's to say that, and I, don't remember any specific timeout called, but say Vanderbilt's coach called a timeout when he shouldn't have, and he should have let his offense play through a possession, and say he drew up a play and it didn't work, and that possession would have turned into a three-point play for Vanderbilt. With a one-possession game in a basketball game especially, we always, we're a Big Ten show, and so when it's football season, we're going to be all about football. And there's, you got 10, 11, 12 drives, possessions in a game, and people like to point to the end and say, wow, what a terrible, call. The ref blew it on this call. Or, wow, that wide receiver dropped the ball. That's insane. He should be cut. But there are 10, 11, 12 possessions in the game. One of them at the end of the game realistically isn't more important than one of them in the middle of the second quarter. It's one possession out of 11 or 12. You could have won the game if you caught the ball in the end of the first half. You could have won the game if you didn't hold in the middle of the first quarter, and your drive would have kept going and resulted in a touchdown instead of a field goal. So there's just so many things to a game. It's not a, I don't even know what to compare it to, but it's not a one decision, boom, okay, this team wins, this team loses. There are 60 minutes in a football game. There are 40 minutes in these college basketball games, and especially basketball when you've got, 70 possessions. No, one possession, one decision, just because it's at the end of the game, shouldn't be as, scrutinized or talked about as much as it is every other possession. Like you said, there are just so many different outcomes that can happen based on one decision throughout a game. When you got 40 minutes or 60 minutes or 48 minutes in a game or 9 innings in a game, there are just so many different things that can happen throughout a game, decisions from coaches, from fans getting a technical foul for throwing stuff on the court. I mean, there are so many things that can happen during a game that just because one player calls a timeout when you have no timeouts left, Michigan, or if you make a three at the end of a first half, it ends up impacting the game later on. But those things rarely get talked about. It's what happens the last 2 minutes or the last 30 seconds or the last drive in a football game. That's what people are glued to seeing, and, that's something people can easily talk about as opposed to 2 straight holding calls in, the first drive of the game. No one will ever say, wow, our offensive line really crippled us there on that possession. Well, that possession can end up in 7 points just like the last possession of the game. So I'm 100% with you. Hats off to Northwestern and winning, though. Who's to say that Northwestern wouldn't have scored exactly like you said? Northwestern will be able to play defense against Gonzaga, but Gonzaga, I think, has the mismatches at point guard and inside. So, Northwestern will be able to hold Gonzaga to the low 70s, but I'm just concerned about Northwestern keeping the pace. We both have Gonzaga moving on. Northwestern is going to have one of those elite defensive performances and be able to shoot well from the outside if they want to pull the upset.
Yeah, definitely. Hats off to Northwestern. First NCAA trip, first NCAA win. Now they've got a tall task in Gonzaga. Moving right below that, Kevin, another great game today, Notre Dame-Princeton. You and I both said Notre Dame was going to win this one, but watch out for Princeton. They're going to keep it close. They do every year. It's Princeton way. 60-58. That is a typical Princeton game, and if they can hold a team to 60 points, they have a great chance to win. And Princeton was right there. This was a game, Kevin, that I found myself cheering for Princeton again. I know I picked Notre Dame, but hey, I was cheering for the underdog, even though Notre Dame pulled it out. Princeton, when they get in the tournament, they play that style, that backdoor cut, and they play good defense. They rebound the ball well. They don't turn it over much. They just hung in there, and they were just a feisty Princeton team today. Notre Dame's lucky to survive.
Yeah, I don't have too much to add, even though I saw, probably 95% of the game. Exactly what you said. That's how Princeton plays. I'm only 25 years old, but I can't remember a better Princeton team as far as seeding is concerned, being a 12 seed. Usually I see Princeton as a 13, a 14. I've never, ever seen them as a single-digit seed. I don't think I've seen them as a 10 or 11. So to call this Princeton team a 12 seed means they're obviously talented. They're obviously good enough to be a 12 seed. Like I said, there's a difference between the 14s, 15s, and 16s and the 12s and 13s from these mid-majors. So they're 12s and 13s for a reason. Princeton obviously was. I think Notre Dame is better than a 5 seed, but Princeton had a 3-point look at the buzzer, and it just didn't go in. So if that went in, we're talking about an upset, but it didn't. So Notre Dame moves on, and in a day, no one will really question the game, question Notre Dame. They'll just be looking for Notre Dame versus West Virginia.
Yeah, West Virginia versus Bucknell. And this, again, like the Virginia game, Kevin, kind of surprising to me. West Virginia found some offense, 86 points, and defensively, Bucknell, 80 points on them. That has to be good news for West Virginia. That really does, Kevin. To see that Bucknell put up 80 points against West Virginia, that's a team, a West Virginia team that prides themselves on good defense, and Bucknell was figuring them out for a little bit, and at the end, West Virginia pulled it off. I'm surprised I saw 86 points out of West Virginia.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't know if it's good news that a team that likes to press and cause a bunch of turnovers and win because their defense gives up 80 points against a 13 seed, and then you're playing against a guard-heavy team who's experienced on the perimeter and is pretty good from the guard position in Notre Dame, and you're facing basically a really good guard team that can beat your press fairly easily. So I would be concerned if I'm a West Virginia fan from the defensive end. Offensively, you're probably not going to score 86 again. I'm sure Notre Dame, won't score 80 on you as well. I think it was just one of those games where Bucknell played out of their minds, and West Virginia probably made a few mistakes more than they're used to because they're not used to giving up 80 points. But if you're West Virginia, you've got to be able to turn Notre Dame over, and I'm concerned about that. If I'm a Mountaineer fan, that's why I've got Notre Dame moving on.
Yeah, that's why I also have Notre Dame moving on. We agreed a lot down in this bracket, except on this next game. This next game, another Big Ten, Maryland versus Xavier. I took Xavier. You took Maryland. We were texting throughout this game. This was the Tremble Blewett show. But I'm going to tell you what, Kevin. I watched this game, and, of course, I always try to tune into the Big Ten. Again, I'm a Big Ten fan, but I watch as much of the tournament as I can. But this game kept my interest. But Blewett did not start off very well, and there was two guys in this game. Gates, a guy who nobody knows. You even said, "Who the heck is Gates?" Gates scored early. He didn't have a great stat line, but he provided some scoring when Blewett was not playing well. Maryland actually had frustrated Blewett in the first half. and hold them scoreless for I don't remember how many minutes. But then this other kid, who in the heck is O'Mara, Kevin? O'Mara went out there and played like he was an all-American big man. He literally went out there and dominated inside against Maryland. And I know Maryland's not the most dominant, as I air quote, team inside, but they got some size inside. But O'Mara threw his weight around, and he played like he was an all-American big man. And if it wasn't for O'Mara, I'm not sure Xavier moves on. But O'Mara got the ball in deep. He was going hard to the hoop, getting big boards, and provided a big inside presence that I don't think they talked about it on the show that they used him down the stretch, but I don't recall O'Mara ever being able to put up points and rebounds like this. He had a career day today, and they needed it as they took down Maryland, but it was a good game.
Yeah, for sure. It was close throughout. O'Mara finished with 18-7. Like you said, it was a career day. 18-7 in just 21 minutes of action. So if he would have played 31 minutes, I'm sure he probably would have ended up with 20-10. He was extremely effective, like you mentioned. Xavier shot 50% from the field. Maryland shot 40% from the field. Xavier shot 39% from three. Maryland shot 25% from three. Melo Trimble went 1 of 9 from 3. Melo Trimble went 5 of 15 from the field. Melo Trimble played 39 of 40 minutes. Melo Trimble had 3 assists. He also had 3 turnovers. So 13 points, 3 assists in 39 minutes. 1 of 9 from 3. Melo Trimble likes to get to the line. He went 2 of 4 from the free throw line. That, to me, is why I have been more down on Maryland probably than most. To me, they weren't as good as the 6 seed. Not to say that they're an average team, but when you rely on a guard who likes to get to the free throw line, just look at the NBA Finals. Just look at the NBA playoffs. And the Golden State Warriors and essentially went up against a more physical team in the Cavs in the finals. And the refs don't want to decide games, especially late, especially playoff games, especially NBA Finals games. So essentially basketball gets more physical once it's postseason time and once it's crunch time. And if you rely on getting to the free throw line like Melo Trimble kind of does if he's not hitting from deep, which, again, 1 of 9 from 3 from Trimble. So he wants to get to the line, and he only got there 4 times, and he made 2 of them. So he wasn't effective at getting fouls. He wasn't effective from deep. He played extremely poorly as far as I'm concerned. Blewett had 20-something points, 21, and he only had 4 in the first half. Like you said, he was scoreless for as long as you can remember. He had 4 in the first half, 17 in the second half. Trimble ended with 13 and 3 turnovers. 1 of 9 from 3. That's my gripe with Trimble and any other player that kind of relies on getting to the free throw line. It's fine during the regular season. It's probably fine during the conference tournament. But NCAA tournament time, NBA finals time, you're just not going to get as many of those calls. James Harden's not going to get as many of those calls in the Western Conference Finals if his team makes it this year. So if he's not, supplying in points from deep, I think Houston's going to be in trouble in the NBA playoffs. Same thing with Melo Trimble and Maryland. It's kind of a Trimble show and 3 talented freshmen. The 3 talented freshmen are Maryland's second, third, and fourth leading scorers. I figured that would be a problem because Trimble's not going to get these foul calls like he has all year. And as a freshman, Trimble got to the line, I think it was the most in the Big Ten. He was top 20 in the country at getting to the free throw line. And then last year, he dialed it back as far as getting to the line, and this year dialed it back even more. So I'm not saying that he's completely free throw reliant anymore. He certainly was as a freshman. That's why I was kind of weary on him. But it's not to say that Trimble's not a talented player. He's the most talented player Maryland has. As we've said on the show, as Trimble goes, that's where Maryland goes. But if he's not hitting from deep and NCAA tournament time rolls around and he's trying to get to the line and he can't because the refs don't want to call as many fouls, then sorry, but he's going to struggle. And he struggled from deep. He struggled in this game. That's why Maryland scored 65 points. They shot 25% from 3, 40% from the field. Xavier was not out-talented in this game. Maryland is far too young, and Trimble just straight up didn't deliver.
And Blewett got hot in the second half. I mean, I
Yep.
was watching that game, Kevin, and man, I think I texted wow one time to you. I don't know how he got the shot off. I think he caught the ball at his knees, went through a shooting motion, brought it up and shot it, and just all net from 3 points and 3-point land. And I'm like, wow, the guy's hot right now. This was the game I was talking about. I'm like, if Xavier keeps shooting that three, though, they're going to let Maryland back in the game. Because I thought they did rely too much on the three-pointer, but they got by Maryland. Now they get to run into the second round against the Florida State team, Kevin, that took care of Florida Gulf Coast. That's where all of the, I guess, the people were saying Florida Gulf Coast and everything that happened last year, and can they make another magical run? You and I picked Florida State due to talent. This is a Florida State team that goes, 8, 9, 10 deep, Kevin? And I know we both picked Florida State. Or did you? Yeah, we both picked Florida State. Or did you pick Maryland over Florida State? I can't remember.
No, I picked Florida State to move on.
My problem here is, as I watched this Xavier game, if this O'Mara kid can come out and play again like he did, and Gates can be a compliment to Blewett, I know they don't have a true point guard, and it was even mentioned on a telecast, when they were trying to break the press. But I want to tell you what, if those three guys, if they found a little trio of guys in O'Mara and Blewett and Grant, I think they could take down Florida State, even though I picked Florida State. I might jump on the Xavier bandwagon, Kevin. I really enjoyed watching this game, and if Blewett can stay consistent, and if he gets hot like he did and can hit that three from anywhere on the court, I think Xavier might have a fighting chance against Florida State.
Yeah, they definitely have a fighting chance. FSU's got the certainly talent advantage, but they're just so inconsistent. You score 86 points, but you give up 80 to Florida Gulf Coast. So it's like, what's the deal? Because you've got at least 2 NBA players on your roster, and you go 8, 9, 10 deep, and they're a top 5 team in the country as far as height is concerned. They've got multiple 7-footers. They've got multiple guys 6'10", 6'11". They're huge. FSU's a bunch of monsters, and one of their NBA guys is 6'9", and he's extremely lengthy, Jonathan Isaac. He'll probably be a lottery pick in next year's NBA draft. So this FSU team is huge. I don't expect Xavier to get much from Gates inside or O'Mara inside the way he did against Maryland. I think that's going to be shut down and taken back to a level where he's used to. Blewett will do his thing. But to me, it's a matter of if Florida State plays up to their capabilities, they'll win. If they don't, Xavier certainly has the talent and ability to beat Florida State like a lot of teams did this year. Basically, when Florida State played their best basketball, they were really hard to beat. When they didn't, it kind of came crashing down because of the youth and their bigs inside. Even though they're huge, they don't dominate inside. They don't have a polished post game like you see some of the Big Ten players do, like Swanigan or Ethan Happ. They're not that polished. It's just a bunch of big guys and a bunch of athletes who are ready to move on to the NBA. So Florida State's ceiling is really high and their floor is pretty low because they almost lost to Florida Gulf Coast. They only won by 6 points.
Yeah, and Florida Gulf Coast kept it close for most of the game. So Florida State didn't cruise through and they closed the gap at the end. They kept it close pretty much throughout the game. The next game, Kevin, 7-10, this is where a lot of people, their brackets can be broken. They can get that first-round loss. But, a lot of times a loss in the first round doesn't matter anyway. 7-10 game, this is the one that we also disagreed on. I had St. Mary's, you had VCU. St. Mary's pulled it out. They had a huge lead. VCU clawed back. Just an enticing game. I mean, it was one of those 7-10 matchups that's an exciting game to watch. St. Mary's, that for a while there, I didn't even flip back to it because I think they were up by 16 points, 17 points at one time. So I kind of turned it off and went to some more exciting games. But give VCU credit; they tried to claw their way back. They just didn't have enough time to do it. St. Mary's moves on. They're going to play Arizona, who put up 100 points against North Dakota. Kevin, first team in the tournament to put up 100. That was Arizona. That's a team we have going to the Final Four. We have them going to the final, to the championship game. You actually have them winning it all. So they put up 100, took care of North Dakota State pretty easily, 100-82. I don't think Arizona was ever in trouble in that game. But the bottom two games, St. Mary's over VCU, Arizona over North Dakota, what do you got to say about either of those games?
I picked VCU, and just looking back on it, and I guess it's kind of a question of what was I thinking. Even when I was describing my pick, saying, yeah, I'm picking VCU over St. Mary's. St. Mary's scores it easier, but I like VCU's defense. But Shaka Smart left. But, yeah, I like VCU's defense. And even while I was describing that, it was like, well, wait a minute, if St. Mary's scores it a lot easier and I don't really love VCU's defense, why am I going with VCU? But, it showed during this game that St. Mary's just scored it a lot easier. And they led early, and VCU got, they crawled back in because of their defense, but St. Mary's still put up 85 points. They're just a much better offensive team. VCU doesn't have three-point shooters. So I was kind of kicking myself. Even while I was describing my pick, it's like, I can still go back and change this, but I don't know why I'm sticking with VCU. And, St. Mary's was up 15 points in the first half, and it's like, yeah, I knew this was going to happen. Why did I not switch the pick? So I blame myself. I love that Arizona put up 100 points, though. North Dakota is a top 5 team in the country, so that's amazing to see Arizona put up 100 points. That means everything going forward. Kidding aside, I love that Arizona got to the second round and will eventually win the entire thing.
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt that Arizona was going to move on to the second round. But when we move over to the right side of the bracket, only 2 games in the South today. First one, Butler and Winthrop. This game, not a whole lot to say. Butler just took care of business. Winthrop, you would have thought maybe could give them a little better run for their money. Kept it close in the beginning, and then Butler just played better basketball. I mean, that's what I'll say about this game. Nothing really that stuck out to me. It was a 4 over a 13. We both picked Butler in this one. Butler just played a better basketball game today.
Yeah, I saw about a minute of it. I'm not going to lie. Butler was kind of in control throughout, and I think Winthrop got it to 8 points at one point in the second half, and that was it. Next time I looked up, Butler was up double digits. So I was looking for this upset because Butler overachieved this year. They were supposed to be a middle-of-the-road Big East team, and here they are as a 4 seed. So their coach is up there for Coach of the Year nominations because of what he got out of his team. This isn't as good a Butler team as years past, but they got a 4 seed. They got the wins they did. They beat Villanova in the regular season. So Butler knows what they're doing. Their coach deserves credit. I just couldn't pull the upset card on Winthrop because I did some research, and they didn't look like that great of a 13 seed to me. So I stuck with Butler, and Butler, I guess, proved me right. If there was a boring game today to watch, it would have been Butler. Like I said, I only saw a minute of it. They were pretty much in control throughout.
Yeah, and then we're going to move on to their opponent, Middle Tennessee State. I mean, that was the sweet, sexy pick in this year's NCAA bracket, Kevin, and I guess all the experts are right. I know I went with Middle Tennessee State. You went with Minnesota. I wasn't buying into the Kool-Aid, though, that Middle Tennessee State. I was more against Minnesota just because of the way they ended the season. And I know Minnesota kept it close there near till the end. And then Middle Tennessee just played a little better basketball in the last 3 minutes of this game. Minnesota, had some things happen differently at the end. Very well could have pulled this out, but again, this is one of those picks that the experts said you have to pick Middle Tennessee State. I didn't do it because of that. I did it more because we are a Big Ten show. We followed Minnesota and the things that happened to Minnesota at the end of the year, which started at the last game of the regular season when they only mustered 49 points against Wisconsin. I know they scored 72 today, but then, losing players also came into effect, and I just thought that Middle Tennessee would take care of business, which they did.
Yeah, Minnesota was 7 deep going into the Big Ten tournament, and then they lost to Keene Springs, and they turned into a 6 deep team. Got past Michigan State, but didn't have enough to beat Michigan. And I went with Minnesota. You went the right route with the 12 over the 5, and we knew what Minnesota was all about. I was confident that Minnesota still had the better talent, but they were only 6 deep, so I was hoping for a close victory. Didn't turn out that way. Your bracket is perfect as far as I'm concerned, the last time I checked. So you can absolutely gloat, and this is one of those upsets that, like you said, it wasn't a shot in the dark. It wasn't a, holy cow, I randomly think this 12 seed is going to beat a 5. No, it was a very common 12 over 5. I think the game was like a 50-50. I'm not sure where the odds were, but I'm sure it was close to a pick'em game because that's how everyone saw it. Middle Tennessee State's legit, and their top 3 players are absolutely, Sweet 16 worthy. The rest of their team, not quite sure. Their top 3 players are really good. Their point guard is talented, but he's only a freshman. I like Middle Tennessee State to get past Butler. I would have liked Minnesota to get past Butler. I think both those teams are better than Butler and Winthrop. So I expect Middle Tennessee State to advance, get to the Sweet 16, play North Carolina, and then that's where it's going to unravel. But had Reggie Lynch for Minnesota, their only big, not gotten 2 quick fouls in the first half and then a third foul quick in the second half, I think Minnesota could have done some damage and probably built a lead in this game, but they just couldn't. They had no interior presence with Lynch getting foul trouble. Lynch had 3 blocks in the first couple minutes of this game. He was imposing as well inside. Minnesota was up 7-0 to start the game. And then Middle Tennessee State at one point was up like 13, 14 points halfway through the second half, and it's like, wow. Middle Tennessee State, since being down 7-0, was on like a 41-20 run or something like that. So it got out of hand, and then Minnesota made it more interesting once Lynch came back in the game. But especially in foul trouble when you're 6 deep, that's why it matters when you don't have much of a bench, because it just takes one little twisted ankle. It takes one off-shooting night from a top scorer. It takes one big guy getting into foul trouble, and your depth is absolutely depleted, and you're in trouble, especially against a talented team like Middle Tennessee State. That's why a lot of people picked them, and I should have went with it. But I expect them to get to play North Carolina in the Sweet 16.
That would be nice because that's where I picked them. And if you remember back to my pick'em show, another reason I picked Middle Tennessee State is because in that group of 4, when I looked at the next bracket, I thought that the winner of that game would get by Butler or Winthrop. So there was a little bit of logic that went into that and not just staying with the so-called experts. And, to get back to something, Kevin, day 1, I look at my bracket, and there's no blemishes on it. But like you said, I'm not even sitting here jumping up and down for joy saying, man, I'm great, because a lot of it was chalk, and there wasn't a lot of upsets today. So, I just picked logically. I mean, that's the way it worked. You'd think, oh, wow, I didn't get any wrong. Like you said, I didn't have one of those games where I'm like, man, I'm great because I picked this major upset. A lot of it's just chalk and logic. So, I did have to make those picks. I mean, there's a little part of me that says, yeah, great, I'm off to a great start. Let's see what happens tomorrow. Still 2 games to go over, 4 teams. The game that I really enjoyed watching, Kevin, Purdue and Vermont. That Vermont team, man, they were shooting the lights out. But at the end of the game, it goes back to what we were saying, and maybe part of the reason why I have Purdue in the Final Four. The big guys in the middle, Swanigan, man, he was just a beast at the end of this game. And then, Haas, he struggled, I thought, in my mind in this game. I thought the guy that really played well at times was Matthias. He's a guy I think and I texted to you, I think he's underappreciated with everybody else around him. And the Edwards guys, man, they were doing their thing at guard play. And so Purdue, they look like they're starting to put some things together. They actually had to play a good game. This is a Vermont team, Kevin, that went out and played one really good game today against Purdue. And hopefully for me, bracket-wise, that Purdue can continue this. But then we're going to talk about Iowa State, and I'll tell you what, Iowa State got off to a big lead, and they still look good. Iowa State still looks good. They took on Nevada 84-73. I know that Nevada was a team that I thought could wreak some havoc on Iowa State. But I'm going to tell you what, Kevin, Iowa State might be playing some of the best basketball in the whole tournament. And Purdue's got a tough game against Iowa State. So these two games, let's talk about them. Purdue over Vermont, Iowa State over Nevada. I thought it would be a little closer than 84-73. And to be honest, I think Iowa State was pretty much in control this whole game. They just are playing really good basketball right now.
Yeah, offensively, they weren't being stopped. Nevada would go through runs and stretches where they would make it closer, 6 points, 7 points, 8 points, but Iowa State would always get it back to double digits because their offense is just rolling right now. Like you said, couldn't have said it better. They're just probably playing arguably the best basketball in the entire country right now. That's what Iowa State's doing offensively. They're a smaller team. So Purdue, you look at Isaac Haas and you see 8.6 rebounds, only 16 minutes. If he can get on the floor, and I guess that's the question is when he gets on the floor, because Swanigan played 38 minutes in this game against Vermont. And I think you're going to see a lot of Swanigan plus 4 guards, / 3 guards plus Vincent Edwards. He's more of a forward. Carson Edwards, the freshman point guard, he's really good. But you're going to see a lot of 4 guys on the outside and Swanigan on the inside, I think, against Iowa State, because Iowa State's going to go with 4 guards. And 1 big to match up with Swanigan or Haas, but obviously Swanigan's the better player. So Swanigan will be in there for at least 35 minutes, I'm sure, again. So Swanigan had 16 and 14 in this game. Again, another double-double. Nothing surprising. Purdue shot 51% from the field, 45% from 3. This team can rebound with the best of them. They've got 2 legit bigs when they want to, and then they've got Klein, who can shoot from 3, Matthias, who can shoot from 3, P.J. Thompson, who can shoot from 3, Carson Edwards, who can shoot from 3, and more unreliably, I guess, Vincent Edwards can shoot from 3, but he still can. So this is a complete team. You want a little more from their guards as far as experience is concerned. You want a little more from their players as a whole defensively, but I think Purdue is a decent defensive team. You don't have to be fantastic. You just have to be good defensively, and I think Purdue can be good during stretches. So while Purdue is not one of my top 10 talented teams in the country, they're of those next 6 to 8 that make you say, okay, these 6 to 8 teams can push those top 10 teams in the country this year. That's not always the case. That's why I went very chalky this year, because I like 16 to 18 teams this year. So that's why I had very few upsets in the first round. Came to bite me today anyway. I had 3 losses, but, all of them made sense. That's why you picked them. There was nothing outlandish that happened today. I lost 1 Sweet 16 team. That was Minnesota. It is what it is. As long as your Final Four is intact, that's what matters. So obviously hats off to you for going perfect, but my bracket and everyone's bracket, I think at this point, is not exactly hurting in any way. But yeah, Purdue is an overall team that you can't really knock them for anything. They just don't play exceptional defense, and you want probably more out of their guards experience-wise. But this team, Purdue against Iowa State, is going to be a heck of a matchup. You've got excellent small ball against a really good overall team. So it's whoever Kansas gets in the Sweet 16, they're going to have their hands full as long as Kansas gets there.
Yeah, well, I appreciate the kudos for being what is it, 16-0 today.
Yep.
But on Saturday, Kevin, if Iowa State wins, my bracket is pretty well screwed. It literally is, because I just lost the Final Four team. So,
yep.
That's why, again, I sit here, and I told Evan on the show before, he had asked what my bracket was, and I said no comment. And people might want to think, well, okay, well, it's busted, or, you're doing good and you don't want to jinx it. The thing is, I'm not even worried about tomorrow, Kevin. I'm more worried about Saturday in this Purdue-Iowa State game, because that's the pick. That is the game that makes or breaks my bracket, right there. If Purdue loses, I'm done. I'm really done. That is what happens when you ride that upset pick. But again, like you said, Kevin, a lot of chalk. And tomorrow, again, we went over all these games, but on the right side of the bracket, and there's a lot of games on the left today. On that right side of the bracket, you and I went crazy on the right side. The thing is, you could see it happen, but it could also go the other way. It could be chalk again, but it could be crazy. And I think part of that's due to the level of competition that's out there in this tournament, and we'll see what tomorrow brings. We could be talking tomorrow, and I could be 16-16, Kevin. Yeah, that's the way that this tournament might roll out. I highly doubt that because there's a couple number one seeds in there, and if 2 number one seeds went down, holy cow, you and I would have quite the show. It might be longer than an hour if that happens. But, no, first day of basketball did not disappoint to me. I love this time of the year. I thought it was great, and I can't wait for tomorrow's games. Yeah,
can't wait for tomorrow. If 16 seeds beat 1 seeds, I think everyone's in trouble. And we're going to have a lot to talk about. And 3 of the 2 seeds play tomorrow, and I personally like the 2 seeds more than I like the 1 seeds this year. As crazy as that is, I have 3 number 2 seeds in the Final Four. I have 0 number 1 seeds in the Final Four. So I've got 3 2 seeds along with UCLA in the Final Four. Even if Purdue loses to, Kansas or Iowa State, you get, 3 of the Final Four correct. You get UCLA as the winner correct. You're probably going to win the pool, as far as I'm concerned. But, having one upset team, that makes you bite your nails throughout every single game, no matter what game it is, that's what makes March Madness fun. But every game, every team, to me, that's why today was full of non-blowouts, because the disparity really between the top teams and the other teams is not as big as it is in years past. So all these teams are susceptible to lose. But that Iowa State-Purdue game is something I absolutely want to watch. And tomorrow's games, can't wait for them. First game of the day, 12:15 Eastern. Michigan plays Oklahoma State. That could easily be the best game of day 2, and it's the first game.
Yeah, first game, and guess where I have Michigan? I have them in the Elite 8. That's what I'm saying. Today was great for me, Kevin. Tomorrow I could be on this show sulking in the corner. I could be sulking in the corner tomorrow. That's another thing about March Madness. You can be on the top of the world one day and bottom of the barrel the next. So hope you enjoyed the show tonight, everyone. I am Old Man Troy, joined by the youngster Kevin Cunningham, a.k.a. Kid Cunny on Twitter. Hope you enjoyed our first round recap. We'll get back with you with another show tomorrow. Have a good night, everyone.